My name is Ilara and I'm 27 years old. I work as an office employee. Last year I got married, marking a major milestone in my life. Currently, my husband Gideon, my husband's mother Vivienne, and I live in a duplex with entirely separate living spaces. Recently, I've gone through a major change by giving birth, and I'm now on maternity leave. 5 years ago, when my mother passed away, I was relieved. I could introduce my lonely father to his grandchild, a new family member. However, those happy days were short-lived. Losing my mother seemed to worsen my father's already diagnosed cancer, leading to his quicker-than-expected death. The suddenness of this event left me stunned. With no time to mourn the loss of my parents, I found myself overwhelmed with preparations for the funeral and handling the estate, all while caring for my little baby. During one of those busy days, I heard the front door open, followed by an unfamiliar voice. "You're completely drenched. What can you do?" "There's a hurricane." While I was idly wondering if it might be one of Gideon's friends, suddenly the living room door was flung open with a loud bang. "All right, time for you to leave." "What are you talking about? You don't belong in this house anymore." Gideon stormed into the living room, making nonsensical statements. Next to him, a young woman was smirking with a sneer. It was immediately clear to me who she was. She was his mistress. "Gideon is fed up with seeing your body after having a baby, so just go already," she said. Their unbelievable statements left me completely dumbstruck. Then, as if sensing the tension, my child Jasper started crying loudly enough to make it stop. Crying. Gideon's shout echoed, causing Jasper to cry even more desperately. I hurried over to the crib, gently picked up Jasper, and started to soothe him, aiming to calm him down. "So could you just pack up quietly and get out of here?" "Why? Why are you saying this? From today, this house is just for me and her to start over. So you need to leave now." "But why would you decide something like that?" "Let me be clear. You and your child are just in the way now." It was the moment Gideon abruptly announced he wanted a divorce. He continued with a mocking smile, uttering unbelievable words. "The house is in my name. There's no reason to let you, who are now unnecessary, live here anymore. You've inherited your father's estate, haven't you? So let's divorce and you can give me a part of that inheritance through the lawyers." "All right. Are you saying you married me just for my inheritance? And what if I did? Given that my father once held a significant position in a major corporation, it might not be surprising that there are those out to get his inheritance, don't you think? That's the lowest of the low. Don't make a big deal out of it. It's not like you're any better." "What do you mean by that?" "You married me knowing I would inherit the CEO position of a major corporate group from my mother, didn't you?" "I had no idea about that. You never told me until we got married, and I only met your mother for the first time at our wedding." "That's how you always act, so high and mighty. I really hate how you look down on other people, thinking you're smart and capable with such an unattractive attitude." "What do you mean by that? You're such a boring woman compared to Kasha, who's full of charm. Your lack of appeal just stands out even more. Unfortunately, today was marked by a severe storm due to the typhoon. Despite this, I couldn't stay put and had to move. Holding a stroller in one hand and dragging a heavy suitcase with the other, I braved the wind and rain, clutching an umbrella that wouldn't open. I hurried to the nearby park for cover. Given the raging weather, it's unlikely anyone would be outside during the day. To be honest, I was filled with a desire to avoid meeting anyone at all. Lost in what to do next amidst the noise of the storm, I faintly heard different footsteps. "Hi, Vivienne. Is that you?" Standing before me was my husband's mother, Vivienne. "What brings you here?" "What's wrong, dear? It wasn't easy to tell Vivienne that Gideon and his mistress had kicked me out of the house. Since we got married, for some reason we had been kept at a distance by Vivienne. Maybe her busy life was to blame, but I felt disliked by her. With such a background, I struggled to find the right words, and my words faltered. Yet, as if nothing had happened, Vivienne began to speak calmly. "You were kicked out by Gideon, weren't you?" "Ah, how did you know?" "I could hear Gideon's yelling all the way here, and I saw you being thrown out." Knowing that Vivienne knew everything, I felt embarrassed and frustrated, with various emotions blurring my vision. I could do nothing but silently look down. At that moment, Vivienne gently took my hand and caressed my head with her other hand, as if to cherish me. "I can somehow understand how hard you've been trying to endure all by yourself. You've done well to stand up so strongly on your own." "Really?" "Of course, don't worry anymore. I'm here for you, and we'll get through this together." Surprised and filled with gratitude by Vivienne's unexpected words, I looked up at her face. "You might not understand what I'm saying, but first, let's go back to my house. We can talk more there." However, I had just been kicked out of that very house. If my husband found out about Vivienne's plan, I didn't know what would happen. As if sensing my inner turmoil, Vivienne spoke in a quiet but firm tone. "How about coming to my house? I'm the head of that house, and no one can go against what I say. It's too large for one person, so let's live there together." Saying so, Vivienne confidently pushed the stroller and started walking towards the direction we had just come from. I followed her, albeit with a bit of hesitation. My husband lives on the second floor of our duplex, and right below is Vivienne's house. This was my first visit to that house. It was a simple, neatly arranged space, typical of Vivienne, and the towel she offered to the rain-soaked me was soft, emitting a warm scent that calmed my heart. In the adjoining Western-style room, clothes had been prepared, and the room was already equipped with a crib and a baby monitor for Jasper. What does all this mean? I thought it might soon be necessary, so I prepared in advance. What do you mean by soon? It's about Gideon. It's been 2 weeks since your father passed away. I thought Gideon might take some action, so I made all the necessary preparations. What do you mean by that? I couldn't immediately grasp the deep meaning behind her words, leaving me confused and unable to hide my surprise. Don't worry, Ilara. I'm here for you. Just answer when I ask. That's all. Every time Vivienne gently touched my head, I was reminded of the warm sensation of being caressed by my mother when I was a child, and I nodded to her, feeling relieved. Then Vivienne left the house and headed towards the entrance of the house where we lived with Gideon. She took out the keys with a calm demeanor and began to unlock the door, an unexpected move. "Why do you have the keys?" "Why?" As far as I knew, there wasn't such a close relationship between Gideon and Vivienne. I had never heard that he had given her keys to the house, me looking at her with confusion. "Oh, because I own this house." "What do you mean by that?" "The house is all in my name. It's natural for me to have the keys since I built this house." Shocked and bewildered by this revelation, I doubted my ears at her words. Gideon had always claimed the house was his, but it turns out that was false. Seeing my astonished expression, Vivienne continued even more cheerfully. "There's a lot you don't know yet. Enjoy discovering new things with me." Saying so, she entered Gideon's house with confidence. Listening to voices leaking from the living room, she walked towards it with determined steps. Behind the swiftly opened door, the figures of Gideon and his mistress, Kasia, sitting closely on the sofa, came into view. "What, Mom?" The two hurriedly adjusted their clothing, showing their panic. "Don't be so surprised. I'm used to such situations. Are you too?" "What does that mean?" I know about the woman you've been bringing into the house while Ilara has been away. There's no need to hide it now. Why would you know about that? The security camera at the gate has recorded every move you two have made. And yes, I've heard all the sounds as well. Really, the noise of the loud woman you bring into the house. I hear that clearly, too. You mean inviting noisy women over, thinking their voice won't carry outside? But I know all about it. With that one statement, both were so embarrassed they blushed and shrank. Well, aside from that, the important thing is that you need to leave this house immediately. Why should I leave? Even if we were to divorce, shouldn't she be the one to go? Stunned by her unexpected statement, Gideon then displayed anger. However, as always, Vivienne kept her cool and firmly stated her position to him. Who do you think built this house? What do you mean by that? Whose house do you think this is? Everything is in my name. Without my permission, you cannot stay here. But Ilara and Jasper can stay if I allow it. Do you understand? He was taken aback by her words, his face pale and unable to hide his turmoil. His mistress, Kasia, in turn, confronted him with visible anger. Wait, this is totally different from what you said. You said once your wife was out, this would be our home. I never thought my mother would take her side. Seeing his awkward attempt to defuse the situation, Vivienne lightly threw in her words. Actually, I quite like Ilara, really surprised. I looked at her with amazement as she smiled kindly at me. Meanwhile, Gideon's chilly voice filled the room. What are you talking about? Since you brought her here, you two have hardly looked at each other or spoken. What kind of joke is this? Now that's because I made it that way on purpose. My only aim was to ensure Ilara wasn't targeted by you. What do you mean by that? The words of Vivienne held a completely different meaning from what Gideon had said, leaving me more confused and starting to lose sight of what the truth was. I had always thought that Vivienne disliked me, but was that perception wrong? What does targeted mean? I found myself unconsciously continuing to look at Vivienne. I've always wanted to apologize. I'm sorry for being so cold to you, Ilara. In truth, I was really happy when you came to our family, but why? What does targeted mean? What I meant was, it was all to protect you from any harm. What do you mean? Gideon would do anything for money. He even went as far as taking his own father's life. Is that really true? Yes, it's true. He caused his father's death for the inheritance. Isn't that right, Gideon? Shocked and frightened by her words, I lost my ability to speak and my body began to tremble. The situation seemed so unreal and my heart couldn't follow. What nonsense are you talking about? The accident was caused by Dad's drowsy driving as stated in the police report. How did it become my fault? Gideon vehemently denied her accusation, his anger towards her palpable. What if you were the reason Dad had the accident? What do you mean by that? You knew Dad was using sleeping pills along with his medication for high blood pressure, didn't you? Yes, I knew that. But suddenly he stopped taking his sleeping pills and started to fall asleep during the day, leading to the drowsy driving incident. Were you the one who swapped his medications? Don't make baseless accusations. Stop blaming me without any evidence. Gideon's response was filled with indignation, but Vivienne was confident. We need evidence. The best proof is that you're trying to do the same thing to me now. What do you mean? Since your father passed away and you inherited the estate, it's been slowly diminishing, hasn't it? Ever since we moved into this duplex, you've been sneaking into my house while I'm away, tampering with my medication, haven't you? That's not something I would. Stop your futile resistance. This house is always equipped with baby monitors for when Jasper visits, and there are multiple security cameras capturing your every move. Your misconduct has been fully recorded." Shaken by her words, I couldn't stop trembling. She explained that she realized Gideon had been doing the same to his father, leading to his death. "Your father, with his poor eyesight, couldn't tell the difference between the medications. I noticed the difference in the medications right away, but I kept silent to gather evidence. And now I have enough." The fact that no rebuttal was made to such an explanation suggests that Gideon indeed took the actions previously described by her. Unfortunately, it is a sad truth that a child harbored such feelings and acted upon them. Every time I think of Vivienne, I can't help but feel a deep tightening pain. "So what exactly do you mean by protecting me?" "As long as Gideon targets me and you stay away from me, he won't harm you. If something happens to me, I've arranged for it not to impact you. Since we don't directly relate or interact, Gideon has no reason to go after you." Surprisingly, I was made aware that I had been protected by Vivienne all along from the potential harm that could come from her own son. I truly wished to build a good relationship with such a wonderful young woman like her. I deeply regretted that I couldn't offer any assistance during this difficult time. In her eyes, I could see not only sadness but also profound kindness. Recognizing her son's abnormal behavior and deciding to protect others must have meant battling unimaginable pain. I bit my lip hard, trying not to let the tears fall. I felt a deep sense of gratitude towards Vivienne. Then she made a shocking statement that revealed a fact I had been completely unaware of until now. "To be more specific, I've strongly felt that you've been targeted by him since the moment you first met. Is that true?" "Yes, Ilara. Your family was well off despite being a single-parent family, and your father's illness was already known when you met Gideon, right?" "Yes, that's right." "Wait, does that mean?" The doubts in my mind made me unable to see the shocking facts any other way. His timing in bringing up the divorce seemed to confirm my suspicions. Likely because a slight change in my expression gave something away, Vivienne seemed to sense something. "Your intuition is correct. He was actually after your father's significant inheritance." At that moment, all the pieces fell into place in my mind. My father, ailing in health, and I, his only daughter. Naturally, if the marriage continued and then my father passed away, the inheritance would naturally come to me. If a divorce were to happen, the assets we built together were supposed to be divided equally. Realizing this was Gideon's aim, I could only sigh. Still eager to end the sequence of events, I turned to face Gideon. Facing his discontented expression, I made my stance clear. "It's clear what you're after. I agree to the divorce, but you won't get any inheritance from my father." "Huh. Our shared assets should include your father's inheritance, right? It's legally mandated that assets be divided in a divorce." Faced with his rebuttal, I felt his contemptuous gaze, sensing his disdain for me. Despite his intelligence, I felt a certain simplicity and naivety in his satisfaction from cornering me emotionally, for which I oddly felt grateful. Unfortunately, the inheritance from my father is not considered a shared marital asset. Surprised, he couldn't hide his astonishment. "What inheritance?" "Received through succession is treated as separate property, distinct from assets shared between spouses. Therefore, it won't be included in the assets divided at the time of divorce." Even more confused, he uttered, "Huh." Repeating incomprehensible interjections, he expressed the depth of his perplexity in his own way. Still unable to fully grasp the truth, he reiterated his doubt. "Is this really true?" To such doubts, I responded with a confident attitude. "Wouldn't it be better to have a legal expert look into it more closely? Don't you think so, Vivienne?" Seeking agreement from Vivienne, I continued, exactly as you say, Ilara. It's absolutely impossible for you to transfer the inheritance you received from your father to someone else. This is strictly defined by law, and no one can overturn it. Shocked by her explanation, Gideon was impacted, and Kasha, who was listening to the conversation, began to tremble with the unexpected turn of events. Wait a minute. I was told that if you two got divorced, he'd get half of the other party's parental property, including the house, and eventually the parents' inheritance too. Kasha expressed her dissatisfaction, referencing Gideon's previous statements. Struggling to take responsibility for his words, Gideon stammered, "Then what about the Birkin bag you also promised?" "A pre-marriage trip to Europe. I was looking forward to that promise." Kasha protested even more vehemently, the depth of her frustration with his irresponsible promises and rash actions immeasurable. The struggle of being left alone during pregnancy, dealing with the revelation of Gideon's infidelity, and then facing childcare alone postpartum is indescribable. The days of struggling alone to find a daycare and manage the unpaid living expenses as maternity leave was coming to an end. Reflecting on my life tossed by Gideon's self-centered acts, I felt deep disappointment and anger. That anger was directed not only at Gideon, but also at myself for not realizing this reality sooner. In such a situation, when I felt immobilized, the presence of something warm suddenly brought a small relief inside me. Looking beside me, there was Vivienne, watching over me with a warm smile, gently stroking my head again. "Vivienne, don't worry. After your maternity leave ends, I've already thought of several considerations to ensure you can return to work with peace of mind." "Really? Is that true?" Surprised, I asked. And Vivienne began to explain the details of her plan. "Yes, actually, our company is moving towards establishing a childcare facility that employees can use. If realized, this would make commuting with children possible and eliminate concerns about picking up from daycare. Considering the current difficulty of securing daycare spots, this facility would be a significant support. Rest assured, we'll provide solid support from the corporate side." Her words were certain, and I had no prior knowledge of such a plan being implemented at my workplace, nor had I received any official notification. "Vivienne, what do you mean by that?" "Actually, the company you work for became a part of our group 3 months ago." "Is that so?" "Yes, that's right. Currently, we are working on integrating various systems, including welfare benefits. And as part of that, we are planning to establish a childcare facility." "What does that mean?" "It means that I am the CEO of the group that is the parent company of where you work." "No way." "Actually, we've already announced this change through internal emails, but perhaps you missed it." At that moment, I remembered receiving emails from work, but due to recent business, I hardly read any that weren't absolutely necessary. It's likely that among them was an email about this significant organizational change. And it wouldn't be surprising if Gideon hadn't looked at that email simply because he couldn't be bothered, given his usual behavior. It's not unexpected. Seeing Gideon excited about something new was just another day. Listening to what he said, the sheer simplicity of it was almost laughable. Vivienne probably saw through his shallow thoughts right away. Yet, as if trying to draw out the story from him, she carefully listened to his words. "What a thing! I'm actually the son of the CEO of our group company. This is practically a guarantee of a successful future." "Fantastic. I'm so glad Mom noticed the medication swap. It really saved me." "Thanks, Mom." "Really? Does that mean I'll be the wife of a president in the future? That's amazing." Kasha was quite excited. Their frivolous conversation created an indescribably awkward atmosphere for everyone present. At that moment, Vivienne suddenly burst into loud laughter. Her laughter literally rolling on the floor. Laughing was infectious enough to make anyone laugh. Laughing so hard she cried, and bending over with unstoppable laughter, my husband was momentarily confused, eventually grasping the situation. He raised his voice at her. "What are you laughing at?" "Stop it. It's annoying." Despite his irritation, her laughter didn't cease, and only after a hearty laugh did she finally turn to address him. "I can't stop laughing. It seems you're somewhat aware that you've become the butt of the joke. But truly, there aren't many people who can make others laugh as much as you do." "What?" The shallow woman is the same. She looked at them with a chilly gaze, as if forgetting her previous outburst of laughter. Gideon's voice came out weak and feeble, as if frightened by her look. "What did you say, Kasia?" Intentionally raised her voice, exaggerating her inquiry. Irritated Gideon began to assert himself at full volume. "Why should I be made fun of?" "I was just stating the reality. It's only natural that working for a company run by my mom, I would eventually take over as president." "Exactly, as the successor. It was obvious this would happen. Auntie, can't you understand something so straightforward?" Their words echoed in the room when suddenly a loud noise filled the space. Everyone but Vivienne was startled and trembling. At the moment, it was clear from looking at Vivienne that she had slammed something onto the coffee table in front of the sofa, causing its contents to scatter. A quick glance revealed photos of Gideon and Kasia nurturing a secret love within the company. "What? What's this?" "Those are evidence of your inappropriate behavior captured by the company's security cameras. Even if you thought you were hidden, everything eventually gets revealed. This footage has been securely saved as evidence, and there's more than just this." She pulled out screenshots from security cameras that seemed like scenes from a drama, each clearly displaying Gideon and Kasia's inappropriate actions. Despite the nature of these images, I found myself able to view them calmly and clearly, as if no matter how much they tried to hide, their efforts were in vain. Exactly. Before dreaming about a future position as a manager, you need to seriously reconsider the position you currently hold. What you did is clearly problematic from a compliance perspective. Inappropriate relationships and behaviors within the company are often highlighted in the media. You should know the consequences of such actions without me having to explain them. Faced with this conclusion, Gideon and Kasia were at a loss for words. "Furthermore, I officially declare that our parent-child relationship ends here," she announced it calmly, as if it were a matter of course. "What? But that's impossible. We're blood-related after all. You lack even basic knowledge about inheritance to make such a claim." Legally, it's true that the bond of parent and child cannot be legally severed as long as there is a blood relation. See, that's why it's impossible. However, there are procedures to ensure you do not inherit my estate, and those procedures have already been completed. What? Therefore, even when I pass away, you will not receive a penny from my estate, but I'm entitled to my legal share of the inheritance, right? Are you talking about the statutory share? But you see, after all the procedures have been done, not even that is left for you. At that moment, Gideon's eyes widened in surprise and anger, and uncontrollable rage spilled out towards his mother. His anger was also reflected in his actions, and although Kasia tried to calm him down, her attempts were futile against his physical strength. Feeling the tension in the air, I quickly grabbed my smartphone and decided to call for help through the emergency number. This is no laughing matter. I seriously doubt if you're really my mother. How could you abandon your only son like this? Gideon's furious voice filled the room, but it seemed to have no effect on his Vivienne. Vivienne's demeanor remained unchanged until the situation was resolved. Soon, the police arrived at the scene and Gideon was forcibly subdued by the officers. Later, at the police station, a voice recorder previously recorded by Vivienne became crucial evidence, leading to further police inquiries, including suspicions of attempted murder against her. Additionally, Gideon was still liable for legal actions regarding past offenses against his father, as the statute of limitations had not expired. Everything related to the incident was gradually made public and thoroughly investigated. Not just Gideon, but Kasia, involved in serious compliance violations, was also dismissed, and they eventually lost contact with each other. Time has passed, and I've managed to return to my daily life and work. Today, after finishing work and picking up my son from the company-run daycare, I entered the home we're gradually getting accustomed to as a family. I'm home, safe and sound. Ah, welcome back. You've done well today. As if she had been eagerly waiting for me, Vivienne quickly came over and affectionately took my son Jasper from my arms. You've had a long day today. You've had a hard day too, Vivienne. No. The truth is, having hard-working people like you around makes my life much easier. It's my greatest happiness to be able to welcome you all warmly at home every day, she then added even more delightful words. Touched by such warm words from her, I felt deeply moved. Currently, we live together in the residence inherited by Vivienne. That house was like a vacation home built for us by Vivienne when we got married. After the incident, she hurriedly sold it. Thus, I had to start anew on my own. However, an unexpected proposal from Vivienne brought new hope to our lives. Let's do an adoption. Indeed, being adopted by the former husband's mother creates a complicated relationship on paper. Even without direct contact with the former husband, a deep legal relationship is established. Yet, a lonely mother and us, also carrying our loneliness, supported each other for a happier life. Vivienne always encouraged us with a smile. Touched by her warmth, I strongly felt I never wanted to lose this bond and wished for her happiness forever. I'm thankful not only for my family but also for work colleagues who welcomed us back warmly, friends who were happy about our reunion and shared their concerns with me. Although separated from a partner in the most painful way, I discovered something more valuable and found new connections. With deep gratitude, I prepare for a peaceful night's sleep today as well.